Welcome to My Parents Lied to Me, the podcast about navigating aging, loss, and all the midlife changes no one warned us about. I'm Nicole Porter, here with real stories and expert advice to help you face what's now and what's next. Welcome to another episode of My Parents Lied to Me. I don't know if Marjorie even knew that's the name of my podcast, but
I like it.
no, it's all the things our parents didn't tell us, didn't warn us about, and the things that you don't think about as we get older. So My Parents Lied to Me with Nicole Porter. I'm the founder of Your Parent Porter, creator of the Safe Family Preparedness System. And I talk to people that are in this proactive planning space. So I have Marjorie here. She's an estate planning attorney, and I'll let her talk all about herself. But these are my power partners. These are the people I work really well with because I do not give legal advice, and I need people like Marjorie in my life to refer my clients to. So Marjorie, thank you for coming on today. Tell us about yourself and your business.
Well, let's see. I've been an attorney. This is year 34. I started in California doing lots of litigation. I started off actually in maritime law. I did state and federal court litigation in California. Then I worked for U.S. Customs and then moved to Arizona in 1999, where I did a lot of litigation here after taking 11 years off to raise children. And then my husband was wondering when I was going to go back to work. So that ended up being taking the Arizona bar, getting licensed here. That was in 2010. And then decided that litigating things wasn't very personally fulfilling for me and doesn't make clients very happy to have to do that. And so even if you do a great job as a lawyer, they're not like, yes, I'm so excited that I got to sue somebody or that I had to go to court or that I got sued. And so I wanted to help people proactively plan to prevent some of the terrible things that happen in life. And I'm sure we all have stories of people we know who've had some kind of terrible family blow up once a family member either gets sick or passes away. And so in the interest of family harmony, help people plan so that they could avoid things like that. So.
Awesome. People definitely don't realize that even though they have a plan, that there can still be issues with that plan. Do you have a good story to share, like somebody that had a plan in place and it didn't work out the way they thought it was?
I have lots of stories like that.
Oh, good.
I also do probate and trust administration. So if clients come to me to plan, then hopefully we've worked out the potential for conflict and worked out a way to try to avoid it. If people haven't planned with me, a lot of times they come to me with nothing, with where we have to go through probate. Maybe they don't have originals of their documents. So maybe we have to do a formal probate and they just don't know what they're doing. And it's kind of that situation where, wow, mom and dad just left me with a pile of dog poop. And now I've got to try to figure out what on earth to do. So I have lots of those situations. But before people get there, a lot of times they come into my office saying, I need to bring in my mom or my dad. They're 92, 89 or something. And they need something. And I mean, the kids know at this point, gee, there are some gaps in the planning that I didn't think about that I thought my parents would have taken care of by now. And I think what it really comes down to is a philosophical thought that none of us know when we're going to go. And so we always anticipate that it's going to be later than we think. So you think, oh, well, there's always time later to do the documents, see the lawyer, things like that. And that may be the case, but it may not. And so that's where early planning is certainly better than waiting to the last minute. I have had a couple of clients die during the process where they've met with me. They told me what they want. We have a great meeting. All lawyers have to have a written engagement agreement with their client. So I say, great, I'm going to send you the engagement agreement. And these were clients who were too sick to come into my office. So we'd had a Zoom call.
Hmm.
and they do not live long enough to even sign the engagement agreement. And
No.
then what's particularly heartbreaking about those situations is that you know that what they wanted is not going to happen because they don't have things set up in a way that would accomplish those goals. And so those are just heartbreaking situations. I had a gentleman come in and his partner, he had nursed him through an illness. The illness resulted in the death. And it turns out that that person had accounts with friends that he was no longer in a relationship with from 20 years ago as
Oh,
his beneficiaries. And so if he had thought about it for any period of time, or if anyone had asked him, he would have said, yes, no, there's no way I want to leave that money to these people I don't talk to anymore. I want to
right,
leave that to, my partner. And just that's not what happened.
right,
And I unfortunately have way too many of those stories.
right,
So things can happen when you're not thinking about it. So,
right.
I mean, honestly, anyone over the age of 18 should have medical powers of attorney and financial powers of attorney at a minimum because you think something could happen to you. You could be temporarily incapacitated, like, you know, in a car accident or, some kind of accidental thing, or maybe a medical illness or something. And especially since just having gone through COVID, I mean, we all know things like this can happen, and that certainly wasn't anticipated. And you might need someone to make decisions for you, or to pay your bills, or to keep your lights on in your house.
Right.
And so, really, anybody, any adult, really needs those documents in place. But
Can
the
you
the
explain
problem,
more about the powers of attorney, just so people
sure.
understand, like, what kind of responsibility comes with it? When do those go into effect? Just so people understand more about why it's so important.
Well, and it's a lot more complex than the name suggests. You think, oh, power of attorney, that's easy. Medical, it can be. It's just who do I appoint to make medical decisions for me if I can't make them for myself? The doctors will decide whether or not I can or can't make those decisions, and they're on hand because something's going on. And so medical seems pretty easy. The financial powers of attorney are more complicated because you're giving someone access to all of your finances. So they can be limited. They can be limited in duration. They can be limited as to what power you're giving someone. And they oftentimes are only apply if you are incapacitated. And state planning attorneys differ on whether or not you should have that requirement of incapacity. Some attorneys say, if you trust the person to be your power of attorney, then just give them power now so that no one has to jump through the hoops of proving your incapacity if something happens. And sometimes people walk a middle road of saying, well, if it's my spouse, then I trust them to be my power of attorney right away. And if it's not my spouse, then they do have to prove incapacity. So it really depends on how you want to draft things. And honestly, what I tell people, estate planning is as complicated as your people and your assets. If your people are complicated, then it's complicated. And that even if you don't have a lot of money, it's still complicated. And if your assets are complicated, is also complicated. So you kind of need to find a middle of the road situation that's going to solve the problems that those complications can cause. And so it really requires a professional to look at what you have and the potential for conflict or downfall of the a plan, so to speak, that you may not have thought of. And so I kind of specialize in asking questions that people haven't thought of.
It's perfect because, no one knows what's to come and what could happen. And so it's great that you ask all these questions. So is there situations where people are named powers of attorney that don't want the responsibility? And are they allowed to get out of it?
Yes, yes. So it's not a job that you get where it's like indentured servitude. If you're appointed power of attorney and you don't want the job, you can always say no thank you. You can basically resign and say no thank you. I don't want that job. like just like a job interview. It's like, no, it's not the right job for me. No, thank you.
Is
And
that a
then it
family
goes,
conversation or is that a you conversation?
well, and that should be a family conversation where the parents are talking to the kids. So I have two kids. They are adults. They are responsible adults, and one lives in New York and one lives close to me. And so the one who lives close to me majored in finance and is the younger child. So I asked the older child living in New York if she would mind if her younger brother was the trustee of my trust. And the first question, and it was actually, do you trust him? I mean, I think he's trustworthy, but I'm his mother. Of course, I'm going to say that. So I asked my daughter, do you trust my son? And she said yes. And I said, well, would you be offended or would it be okay if I listed him as the successor trustee? And what she said was very interesting. And she's a doctor, so she's in residency. She has absolutely no time. I mean, she works 24-hour shifts every 4 days. I mean, she just doesn't have any time at all and doesn't really pay attention to finances much. So she said, I know I wouldn't have as much time as he has, but I would like to be co trustee just so I knew what was going on. And I thought, okay, that's fair enough. Fair enough. And that makes sense. And I think they could get along well enough to do the job together. And that's
Mhm.
a question. If you have problems with your kids getting along, then having them manage a large sum is not the time to see whether or not they get
Right.
along. In those cases, I recommend professional fiduciaries. That's a good option. Or another family member or friend if you think they'd be capable. But regardless of the age of the person, it is something that you kind of want to look at every 3 years. You know, if she moves to Timbuktu and is working around the clock or they get into a huge fight and I realize they're not going to get along, then appointing them as co-trustees would be terrible. So it just kind of depends on the situation, and it is something that people should revisit every few years.
Absolutely. At what point do they bring the adult children in to go through everything? I've talked to a few people that have said, we did our estate plan and we told our kids it's done, but she says, it's sitting in our closet and I've never talked to the kids about it. So they really don't know what the wishes are. And I think there was even a case where she was like, it's been 10 years since we even looked at this either.
Hmm.
So do you
Well,
find
and
that a
that's
lot?
for my clients. I review their plan with them every 3 years. My clients, they know what the plan says. They understand it. They talk to me. I know them. I know who their family members are. And you might not want to tell your kids exactly what is in the plan. You might just want to ask them if they would be willing to do the job that you're asking them to do. And if they feel comfortable doing that job. Because if they say no, then absolutely don't list them. But if they say, okay, yeah, I could do that, like be a medical power of attorney, for example. So for medical powers of attorney, that is something that I would give to people. And because if there's an emergency, they should have it. They might need to use it. What you're going to do with your possessions if you die, however, might be a different story. Because if you think that the actuarial tables predict that you will be living for a long time, you might change your mind a whole bunch of times based on what your kids are doing. If one of your kids wins the lottery, then maybe you'll leave more money to the other kid. Or if someone has a horrible medical diagnosis, maybe they need more financial assistance than everybody else in the family. So those things do change. Maybe one of the kids borrows tons of money from you for a down payment for a house. Well, then maybe the other kids should have that offset for what they get. Or maybe one of the kids is more involved in your care as you age. And so maybe you're going to be compensating them for that. So all those things can involve big changes in the estate plan. And if you kind of disclose too early, you might
Right.
have people saying, well, wait a minute, that's not the version I saw. And how come mom changed it to give so and so more? And you don't want to cause conflict.
Right.
So I would wait till the very end
But we
before
don't know when the
disclosing
end
exactly
is.
what it says. Now,
Some people
now,
don't know when the end is coming.
well, and that's very true. Now, I do have kids come in with their parents, and we have to get the consent from the parents before the kids can sit in on a meeting. But sometimes parents invite the kids to come. And I have had a client who was terminally ill, and his daughter was coming into town to visit him, and he wanted me to meet her. And so that she had some comfort with, okay, this is the person to call. This is the person who has my plan. This is the person who's going to help walk you through this process. And actually, he passed during COVID. And so she couldn't be at the hospital with him, which was tragic. I mean, it was just so sad.
Right.
And she ended up calling me instead. And
Okay.
so we were on the phone at the moment of his passing, sadly. But I think I was able to bring her some comfort in knowing kind of what happens next and what to do and what's expected of her and what happens to the assets and things.
Right.
So that
And
can
I
help.
think that's what people don't understand is the estate plan doesn't come into effect until someone passes. The plans
Well,
until it has to
or is
be.
incapacitated. You
Right.
know,
Or
if
incapacitated.
if I'm, let's just say for ease of conversation, let's just say I'm single and then I get a dementia diagnosis where I'm like, oh, okay, I might, know what's going on now, but with that diagnosis, I might be deteriorating over time. And I recently had a client come in where his doctors had written a report that said, please get your estate planning affairs in order now because you're not doing great right now and your condition is one that is going to deteriorate. So in that case, he had some warning, but certainly a diagnosis like that should make you think, well, I better line up some people who can help me when I'm unable. And that's a really hard realization for people because
Right.
we don't want to give up control over ourselves and our finances, but it's so important. And one of the other things that is so important on the giving up control topic is making sure your family knows what assets you own, what bank they're in, if there are beneficiaries or what name is holding the account. Like, is it in a trust? And then does somebody have a copy of the trust? And just basically, where's your stuff?
Right. I
What do
that's
you
definitely in
own?
my system because I was thankfully from a small town and my brother shared a lot of the same banks, same insurance companies, same all the things. So that was fairly easy for us, but I could see where that would be so hard for people that are not directly involved with their parents' day-to-day life.
Right. And there are, and my father was one of them, people who like to kind of hide things, like keep them secret. They might have secret accounts, different banks, and they've scattered their bank accounts across multiple banks just in case the bank goes under.
And how do
And
kids find out about those things? Because I know I do have a client and I was coaching her through how to talk to her parents because her dad was one of those men that are like, you'll figure it out. I'm not telling you.
what a disservice. I mean, what a waste of time. Why would you do that to someone? That's where I think simplifying and consolidating just to make things easier and certainly letting people know certainly makes things easier. But worst case scenario, those assets may end up in the Department of Unclaimed Property because so much of what we receive nowadays is sent via email. They're trying to get us to get email statements of every bill and every bank statement. And if you don't have access to their email account, then you're not going to know that the account statements are coming.
Right.
And that
We
could be
definitely went through my
disastrous.
mom's email. My brother knew my mom's password to her phone because she just went into the hospital and didn't come out. So we didn't have those conversations about, hey, where's your, my brother knew mom's password to the phone. He knew where she kept her little sheet. We checked her email. We printed her bank statements. Like we figured it all out. But that's why I created the system because I'm like, there is an easier way for families. There should be some way for them to know way prior to someone passing to have to figure out all these accounts.
Yes, absolutely. So important. So
Yeah.
important.
And I have another question for you because this just came up yesterday. A group of women and single women with no children. And she's like, I have cousins. I'm an only child. I don't have nieces and nephews. And she was like, I don't know what to do or where I'm going to leave my things. And, why make an estate plan? Because I was telling her I was interviewing you today. And so she's like, I don't have an estate plan. And she's in her 50s and single with no children, only child. So what do people like that do in that situation?
And I have a
What do you
lot of
think?
clients like that. I mean,
Okay.
that are outside the mold of married with two children. I mean, really, a lot of people are choosing not to get married, or they just never had kids and they either are or aren't married, whatever the case.
Mhm.
And as they age, those questions become more real. Of course, there are family, other aunts, uncles, siblings, maybe other friends that might do that job for you, but it might be a big job and you might not want to saddle them with that responsibility. And if they're your age, then maybe they're not able to do it either. So there are professional fiduciaries to do the job, which also do handle medical power of attorney and financial power of attorney. And those powers of attorney are effective while you're alive. So they can help you,
Okay.
and it's professional and you're just paying them to do their job, and their job is to make sure you're comfortable and have what you need. And there are some good ones. So I think that is a fantastic option. And then as far as how to distribute, I am very passionate about making people think about what is important to them. So if they don't have a close relationship with nieces and nephews, then maybe they care a lot about kids' cancer, or maybe they care a lot about disabled veterans, or maybe I've seen a lot of people leave money to pet charities
Okay.
because a lot of times they have pets. Maybe they are paying to make sure that their pets get rehomed if something happens to them.
Hmm.
And so they can make a big difference in someone's life.
Right.
They just
That's
need to
great.
be need to think about what's important to me. What kind of impact do I want to leave? Whether it's the arts, like I love classical music, or I love opera, or I love dance, and I love listening to choral groups. Then there are organizations that would be happy to receive a donation upon their passing. It's like, being like the good fairy, like you run around and give out money to people that you think are deserving. And so I think that really allows you the freedom to do that without having to worry about kids.
No, that's
So,
great.
yeah,
That's great. I think people need to understand that just because it's not a typical family situation that you still have a lot of options. And that is why you find a great estate planning attorney that will walk you through all of that and ask you all the right questions and point you the right direction and really make you think about your legacy,
right.
even
How
without
do you want to be
family.
remembered? How do you want to leave the world a better place?
Yeah,
What
that's
did you
great.
care about while you were living? How did you spend your time? And make the organizations to do those things that you enjoyed better, whether it's museums or churches or whatever you're passionate about.
Yeah. Well, all of that's been such great information, great stories. Thank you for sharing. I know we could go on forever, but I just want to capture the audience and get some questions answered for them. If they've been thinking about the estate plan or they have an estate plan that they've put aside, or maybe they don't know where the old lawyer is or whatever, we need to get those updated every
And
three
that's
years.
so one
Yeah, go
thing
ahead.
that you just mentioned, I think is definitely something that we should talk about for a moment, and that is people who've done an estate plan and they're looking for their old lawyer.
Okay.
People should not be worried about finding the same lawyer who did the plan in the first place.
Oh, good.
Any estate planning attorney can look at what they have, advise them on whether it needs a few tweaks or whether it needs to be redone,
Okay.
but can kind of pick up where the last one left off if you don't have a continuing ongoing relationship with an attorney.
Okay.
So
That's definitely one
that's
I did not know because I just assumed that from my own parents' will. And we were like, we didn't get the attorney involved. We didn't know who he was anyway. But I think that a lot of people have that assumption, like, I have to go find that first attorney that did it for me.
And you know what? A lot of times, and this is another very important point, a lot of times the attorneys would keep the original documents. And if you die with something in your name only that does not have a beneficiary set up on the account or on the asset, and you just have a will or maybe no will at all, those things are going to go through probate. And the probate court absolutely needs the ink on paper where you scratched it onto your signature onto the paper. They need the original. Copy will not do. Scanned copy will not do. So a lot of times people don't have their originals. Well, for heaven's sakes, trying to locate somebody's lawyer for some document they signed 30 years ago in another state is terrible. And I've had to do that as a probate attorney, is locate those wills. Sometimes we can't do it. And then we have to have a probate hearing and go through a formal probate. And that takes even more time and even more of a pain and more expense. So just having your original documents is important too.
Okay.
And they also need to be done by an attorney who is licensed in the state in which you live.
Okay.
So if you lived in Wisconsin and then you moved to Arizona, for heaven's sakes, have your plan looked at again by an Arizona attorney. So
Good. Very, very good information to know. Can you talk about, if you cannot find your original documents and you have to go to probate, what is that timeline?
we have a really good probate statute in Arizona. You're still looking at 9 months to a year. And if you have to do formal probate, you could tack on some more months to that, assuming nobody is going to contest it. And during that time, initially, all of the assets of the decedent are frozen. So you can't just keep on paying bills with the power of attorney, because the powers of attorney actually die when you die. So you don't have access to someone's account. And once the bank finds out that the person who's the account holder has passed, they will freeze those accounts. So you can't just log into their online banking and just keep on paying bills.
Yeah,
So
that's a good one to
I
know.
just think
The
everybody
powers of
should,
attorney die when they die.
unless the assets are in a trust and you're the trustee, or unless there is a beneficiary designation on the thing and the company holding the thing contacts you and says, you're the beneficiary, here you go. And that can be an IRA, 401k, it can even be a car in Arizona. We have a process where you can designate, this is the person that I want the car to go to if something happens to me. And that's something we should just do with all of our cars. If you have a car and it's in your own name and you have title, so not a car that you're making payments on, but one that you own, then you should fill out a beneficiary designation form to say who gets the car if something happens to you. So
Learn something new every day. Well, thank you so much for chatting today. I think that was just packed with a lot of great information. And just go ahead and tell the people, again, your name, how to contact you, name of your business, and all the goods. I'll put it in the show notes as well so they can find it directly there. But just go ahead and
Sure.
share that.
So it's Marjorie Desmond, and the firm is Desmond Law. And I started the firm in 2015. We are located in Scottsdale, Arizona. I am also licensed in California. So if anyone is in California or Arizona, that would be, my areas. I do have resources for locating people in other places. So if you would like a referral for somebody who lives elsewhere and you are looking for an estate planning attorney, I can help with that as well. And my website is azlegacylawyer.com. And my phone number is 480-848-9550. So
Awesome. Well, thank you,
yeah, and
Marjorie, so much.
you can contact us at info@azlegacylawyer.com or find us on the internet. So
Awesome.
awesome.
Thanks.
Well, thank you
Thanks
so
for
much
sharing
for
all of
having
that
me.
today.
Really passionate about getting this information out. So thank you for having me. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. And I think people need to hear it over and over and over and over again. Just like my business, I keep saying there might be gaps in your plans. Let me help you. And you have to say it over and over. Oh, the estate plan. Oh, 3 years. Oh, I have to have originals. Oh, eventually
Right.
it clicks and everyone comes together and are like, okay, I'm ready. Right.
Well, and I tell people the hardest part is just getting into my office because people want to postpone it and it's not the top of their list of things they want to spend money on, and they don't like to think about it, and oh gosh, it's hard to make all those decisions, and I really don't want to contemplate my own demise. I mean, it's a hard topic, so a lot of times people just put it off until it's too late, and then it's a disaster. So anyway,
That's what I'm
the hard
about.
part is getting in
Preventing
there.
chaos at crisis. Be proactive, prevent chaos at crisis.
That's right. Absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. And again, my name's Nicole Porter. I am founder of Your Parent Porter. If you have any questions, you can go to my website, yourparentporter.com, and you can do my digital download system, or we can book a one-on-one call. And again, I can do concierge level services and find all the professionals for you. So let me know how I can help you. We're here for you, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks for listening to My Parents Lied to Me, where we face the realities of aging, family change, and midlife reinvention with a little grit and a lot of heart. If today's conversation helped you feel less alone, I would love for you to like it, share it with a friend, and hit follow so you don't miss the next story or tip that might help you navigate what's next. Because even if our parents didn't tell us everything, we're figuring it out one chapter at a time.